T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Launch Sequence podcast. Back for another week of chatting, and you wouldn't guess it, but we're talking Star Citizen this week. I've got a friend here, Tom Beckhäuser, who streams some Star Citizen, plays some Star Citizen, and we want to talk a little bit about player progression. Reputation is a big part of the game, and honestly, you're going to be buying ships, but there's a lot more to what they want us to do long term. So, Tom, you said that this was something you're interested in. I'm very interested in it, and I think it's going to be a pretty good chat today, dude. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's we're at a weird time. It's summer in Star Citizen land, and summers have traditionally seemed to become a time of delays and less information and a little bit of gnashing of teeth. How you been feeling about the game lately?
Worried.
Okay. To put it lightly.
I am a little worried because I think they're behind on a few things that, in my opinion, need to happen before CitizenCon.
What are those things?
Well, 3.24 and mainly 4.0. They said 4.0 in Q3, right? And I don't know. With every passing day, I don't know if that is realistic. Like, I have less and less faith.
This just in, folks, we're going to change this whole podcast episode to talk about where 4.0 is and why it's taking. No, it's definitely the looming topic. I mean,
I went real deep, real quick.
It's been the looming topic for years, and we won't take too much time on 4.0. But I do think, obviously, there's more and more anxiety about this update. That's been the big update that we've been waiting for. That they have clearly wanted to. I mean, they even told us they wanted to get out this summer. And we're like, I don't know, it depends on what you call summer, but we're like halfway through summer, right? The summer quarter.
Yeah.
And the main thing that's worrying, I'm guessing, is just the fact that it's not like to Evocati, right? Or to some kind of testing for players' hands. Is that what's getting you? Or is it like just that there haven't been that many server meshing tests? Or what is it exactly that's getting you?
I think mainly 3.24 not being further along.
So it's like you feel like it's going to be a backup. 3.24 is going to slow down 4.0.
I'd like to hope that 3.24 being delayed won't affect 4.0, but we won't get to test 4.0 unless 3.24 is live, right? So,
besides like the preview channel, yeah.
Yeah, so inevitably, 4.0 will have to get tested, obviously. There will be a whole Evocati, PTU, wave 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's all being delayed a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty widespread sort of worry. For everybody who's on the video and for you yourself, you mind if I flip you around real quick so we're talking to each other?
Yes. Actually, that is the correct orientation, though. I don't know why I was mirrored before.
Oh, it's me. It's a me thing. Don't worry about it.
Okay. That is the correct orientation.
Yeah. No, I got you. This is a little more personal. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of the kind of overarching anxiety surrounding 4.0, and many people we've gone through the ringer at this point, and most people, when they hear something about 4.0, just assume it's not going to happen. I am guilty of listening to CIG when it comes to their estimations. I try to add time on, but it's just never enough. Like when they first said 4.0 is coming next year, I think this is 2022, summer of 22, they said. They were hoping 4.0 would be in the next year. I took their estimate and I added 6 more months onto it. And I was still wrong. And unfortunately, that's still the most viewed video on my channel. And I have to live with that. And I probably have to live with the last one I did a couple months ago. But what about like the game you've been playing? You know, you've been in 3.23 much? You gotten to do any of the, you know, the additions from this last patch now a couple months ago?
So honestly, I've not. 323 has probably been the patch that I've played the least so far.
Okay.
I do feel a little bad about it, but I just feel like 323 is only a taste of what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
And having seen 324 in Evocati, I don't know.
It's hard to care about the current
yes,
patch, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Star Citizen cycle. It's like you get the patch comes out, you get a month to be excited about what's in the patch, and then they start talking about the next patch, so you kind of lose a little bit of that excitement, and then the next patch goes into testing, so you're like, well, okay, I don't care about the last one, I'm just waiting for the next one to come
exactly.
on. But then they start delaying the next one, so you're like, okay, well, I don't care about the last one, but now I don't care about the next one either because it's delayed, and then the Star Citizen furor begins, and it's definitely a cycle, and we've been going through it for years. I actually didn't get to ask you, when did you get into Star Citizen?
So I first discovered it 2021 around Christmas, and I think it was so. I have a TV in our kitchen with YouTube, and I like to watch YouTube videos in the kitchen while having breakfast.
Same.
And I watch a lot of gaming content, so I got a video recommended, and it was something spectacular, like I bought the biggest ship in Star Citizen or something, right? And it was like an 890 jump, and I was like, oh my god, like what is this? This looks crazy. And I clicked on it, and I don't know if it was. I think it was a video from Ollie. I'm not sure. He had a very viral video like 2 years ago, and I watched it, and then I went to watch Morphologist's beginner's guide, and I was just like, oh my god, what is this game? I have to play this. This looks so good. This looks crazy. And I ended up building a PC because of that for Star Citizen. And I started streaming it, which obviously ended up working out pretty well. And yeah, so that's all. If I hadn't discovered Star Citizen on YouTube that day, I wouldn't have a gaming setup. I wouldn't have a stream setup. I had been streaming, but only racing stuff before.
Is it so? You said you have been streaming. Were you like a gamer? Would you say? Were you exploring different types of games, or were you generally just doing the racing stuff because that's kind of what you were into?
So I thought it would kind of promote me in the racing world if I streamed racing stuff on my racing simulator. But I think anyone likes the idea of being a big streamer, no matter what category it is. So I did think about streaming other things, and I liked the idea of streaming other things, but I thought that no one would watch if I wasn't doing racing related stuff. And it was actually quite the opposite, that people didn't really care about me streaming racing stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how popular racing is in terms of streaming, but some probably needed backstory for our viewers or listeners. Tom is a race car driver, so it's not like he's just randomly talking about racing, right? You can search. I actually searched your name on Google, and you popped up for the racing stuff. I was like, no, this guy's a Twitch streamer. Come on. So you don't really play other games besides Star Citizen that much?
Recently, I've played a lot of the finals as well. So, and I'm a big fan of the finals. Those of you who don't know, it's competitive FPS shooter that runs on Unreal 5. And it's a gorgeous game with very unique physics. So
okay, so getting into the space, Star Citizen was a big introduction to it. How many ships you got so far?
You want me to share
Gotta put you on the
fleet
spot,
pick? So I have to say in advance, I've not bought most of these ships. Most of them were gifts from very generous viewers. But maybe 10 ships I've got.
So mainly I want to know, because we're we're about to dive into the points of playing Star Citizen. And for a lot of people, the obvious point is get more ships. But the conversation we're about to have is about kind of where they're going outside of just wanting to get more ships and spending money on those ships. And when I say money, I mean in-game money. Follow-up question then is, what gameplay are you into when it comes to Star Citizen?
So I'd say as of right now, as the game is, my favorite gameplay is that which involves other players, whether it is hostile or helping other players. So I really love stealing other players' stuff. Like if I manage to pirate someone successfully or board someone successfully, that's like really, really cool. But obviously that's not very sustainable. It's you have to get a little lucky to pull it off. Also, I like the idea of medical gameplay and bounty hunting, but player bounty hunting specifically. But the problem is that, again, because the server cap is still at 100, you can be sitting around waiting for a medical contract or a bounty contract that involves a player for hours sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? And that is, again, also why 4.0 needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Please.
it's like
Need more players in the verse. It's dead. It's empty.
we've been doing this for so long that this feels like Star Citizen, right? You get 100 players in your server. Gosh, even just a couple of years ago, it was 50 players in your server. And you go, you run maybe a couple missions, you do some sandbox gameplay, you might encounter a few players. And that feels normal for everybody. But I imagine in 2 or 3 years, if things work out with server meshing, we'll look back on this time and be like, Jesus, this game was kind of dead. Not dead in the sense that it wasn't popular, but just things happening in the game were so sparse, mainly because of that server cap. Yeah.
My dream is for there to be thousands of players per system, and every time I open my contracts manager and I want to be a medic, there's 20 contracts for me to choose from. I want to be a bounty hunter. There's 20 bounties right now. You know, I want to like that. That is my dream, for there to just be life in the verse, and just bumping into people left and right like that. That to me, you know, that'd be a real universe.
Yeah. And it sounds like from your perspective, getting to shoot someone and steal their stuff is the ultimate reward.
Yes, that's that's a lot of fun.
We'll come back to that, because most players, I think, are looking for relatively lawful gameplay. And like, we can talk about the progression of working for Hurston or ArcCorp or Crusader or something and how that would reward you. But I think also talking about what's going to happen for pirates in terms of progression in their star systems of choice or in the corporations and factions they work with is also an interesting angle. So we'll definitely get around to that. In that regard, this is a little bit more of an abstract kind of question, and it will change over time, I think. But like, when you're getting into the game, and you know you're going and taking missions, or you're just doing things like you said, some people are going for the best weapons. Some people are doing money, ships, reputation, whatever it might be. What's kind of your motivation for progressing in an MMO?
In Star Citizen,
Yeah.
that's
This can be theoretical. Like, there's a lot missing to this game. So
Oh,
when
like
the
what I
game
would
is
like-
there, yeah, like
what I
what
would
is
like to have.
what is the thing that you would be chasing?
So I think that when a new player that comes into the game shouldn't have the same privileges and same access to things and the same items, the same ships as someone who spent 1,000 hours on the game. So I want to unlock things. I want to have access to unique things because I've put in the time and the work and the effort. And I think that's the reason why you asked. That is what I hope that reputation will do for us in the future.
So like, how would you feel, and this is off the cuff, this is not where the conversation is going, but how would you feel then if you were to be somebody who put in that time and that effort, 1,000 hours, whatever, but that same thing could be achieved through just buying it, spending money, real life money in the game to getting to that same level in the game as what you did?
I mean, I think it shouldn't be fully the same, in my opinion. Like, obviously, that's not good, in my opinion. If someone can just buy their way up to 1,000 hours of progress, it shouldn't be the way. I think there should be some kind of hybrid. So, like, yes, you can buy certain things that will inevitably move you forward in the game and save you time, let's say. But there should also be things that are only obtainable through playing the game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I think it's inevitable. If it's an MMO, I actually expect CIG eventually to only be selling AUEC on the Pledge Store. I think that's where it's going to go. Like, if you look at GTA 5 online, things, other games that kind of are in that genre, I'd say, that multiplayer online verse genre, I think CIG will be selling AUEC. I mean, they are already selling AUEC, are they not?
Yeah, they are. So you think they should be cutting out the ship sales?
I thought, or I hope so, that eventually there won't be a difference between a pledged ship and a ship bought in game, and that hopefully eventually there won't be any ship sales anymore.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with that. I think, well, we won't get too deep into that. I do agree with you, though. I think that there should be some parity between the ships that you're buying and earning, but then it comes down to like how you can lose ships or what ships you can sell in the game, and like there's so many details they have to work out there.
Yeah.
But you're looking for the chance to progress in the game and be able to make a name for yourself in whatever it is you're doing.
Yes. Yes.
How about now? Because there's reputation in the game right now. Does that actually... Do you feel any sense of progression from that?
I do a little. You unlock contracts, basically, right? That's the only progression we have right now, is the fact that you unlock bigger, more interesting, higher paying contracts.
Yeah.
So I'd say that is there because you unlock more content as you go. And someone who's new to the game won't have the same contracts as you. So that, I think, is a good thing. That's a step in the right direction for me.
I do.
And
go
you could carry someone, right? You carry a new player. You can invite them to your party, share a big contract with them, and then carry them to the new contract, which is also really cool because then you have like the vets kind of introducing the newbies and stuff and showing them cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea that you can share contracts and the reputation, it kind of like tapers off as you're earning it. But man, I feel like at least right now where we are now, there's so much missing in terms of all of that reputation is in the mission system, right? Like you can't really do too much to push your reputation forward with a company that doesn't have to do with running a mission for that company. Is that, like, have you ever thought about that kind of angle? Doing other things outside of missions to earn reputation?
Yes. I think there should also be, because I think right now, if you go into a Hurston facility and you shoot a bunch of Hurston employees, it doesn't affect your reputation, right?
You know, that's something they added in 323, like the whole hostility based on reputation, but I haven't gotten a good chance to test that out that much yet because it takes some time, right? You have to shoot a few people, I think, before they start reacting, but I'm not sure how in-depth that is in the game right now.
Because that should obviously be something that heavily,
Yeah.
strongly affects your reputation. But what else did you have in mind doing outside of contracts that would affect your reputation?
Well, so I think one of the more exciting things I've thought of and they've talked about is the idea that everybody in the game, every faction, every character, every mission giver has their own network, right? They have companies that they are for and against. You work for one group and that affects your standing with another group. And that's also something that we haven't really gotten to see too much. So I'm thinking if I'm running missions for Crusader, does that hurt my standing with Drake? If I'm running missions for I don't know, Miles Eckhart, is that going to hurt my ability to join in on a mission running with the Nine Tails gang? Because we also are running in groups, right? You would team up with a couple of your friends, you'd go and run a mission together. And what if one friend has reputation with one company and you're running mission for that company's rival? Does that affect your ability to earn reputation for that rival that you're working for if you bring somebody along that maybe isn't on good standings with them? Like those kinds of the actual network of reputation feels like there's just so much they could do there.
Absolutely. I think that would be really cool if we had an intricate system like that. For example, I don't know if you've ever played World of Warcraft.
No.
But World of Warcraft had, a lot of things locked behind reputation. I'd say reputation was one of the main things that you could grind in the game, apart from gear.
Okay, so you were a WoW player.
Yes. I played a lot of World of Warcraft for a long time.
Okay.
Not the latest 3 DLCs, but I played a lot of World of Warcraft.
But you have the that's kind of where you get your MMO experience from.
Yes, and there's actually a lot of I do a lot of comparing between World of Warcraft and Star Citizen. I think Star Citizen could take a lot of ideas from World of Warcraft, such as their reputation system, daily quests, and things like that.
Yeah. So how much does that reputation system dictate how you're progressing through the game? Is that like, are you making friends with reputation, or are you just getting different types of rewards from that reputation?
So, in World of Warcraft, at least, there was these mounts and things like that, and gear that you could only unlock, or special items that you can only unlock if you are exalted, which is very, very high reputation with a certain faction. They also had factions where that made you choose. There'd be 2 groups of people that had different rewards, but these 2 groups hated one another. You could not be exalted with both. If you while you were increasing reputation with one, it would lower the other. Right. So you could never, and that was, again, that sets you apart from other players.
Yeah.
Because you might have gone down that path while another player might have gone down the other. And that is something I'm really looking forward to. I hope for Star Citizen that there's going to be something that sets me apart from another player.
Yeah, and that really takes you beyond just earning ships, right? You could have the same exact ship as somebody else, but if you have a different reputation, you're allowed to do other things or even put different items on that ship that somebody else can't. Especially
if it's a big commitment. Right? Like a reputation grind, in my opinion, is a big commitment.
Yeah.
If you have to pick a path.
And you used a word there that a lot of people are very aware of, grind.
Yes.
One of the big fears of a system like this, where you're going to have rewards that are gifted to you or not gifted, but earned through being a part of a group for a long time, is that people will feel like it's going to get kind of grindy.
Good. I think it should be grindy. I mean, you want to unlock everything in 40 hours of gameplay? What are you going to do after 1,000 hours?
Yeah, but the grind can't be too repetitive, right?
No, of course. It has to be interesting. There has to be variety, and you have to be able to do other things, and then maybe come back to the grind, and then yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting at with the whole not just getting reputation through missions, but like other things. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a game developer. I'm not the most creative person in the world. I might not be able to come up with ways to get reputation outside of missions, but I do think that's kind of key because you want to be able to actually. And this is something I sent over in the notes, straight from CIG's mouth, is that they want you to be able to be doing the things that you like to do in the game and still get reputation for that. So like, I always wonder if
Wait,
if
say
there'll be
say the last thing again.
that they want you to be able to do the things that you want to be doing in game, right?
Yes.
The actions that you want to take, but also affect your reputation through doing those things. So like, I always wonder if simply, and this is a really abstract example, but like if you only had guns from a specific company, or you bought armor from a specific company, and then you walked into that company's headquarters, would that help you at all? Would that give you anything? Like, would Hurston Dynamics be a bigger fan of me because all of my ships have Hurston Dynamics weapons on them, or would ArcCorp not like me if I was using somebody else's quantum drives? And I think that's a little bit too much, but you think about the little things throughout the game that you could do to help progress you without forcing you into some specific mission or some specific action and being like, okay, go and do this. You got +5 reputation kind of thing.
There's so many cool things they could do with this. I hope that they add more like quest givers, and you could do unique things. Like if you're not wearing a certain outfit, a quest giver might not offer you a contract. Like you could have a Hurston Dynamics guy, and if you're not, and this could kind of be like an Easter egg, right? Like I hope they add more, like what's her name, Twitch, and then what's the other guys, like the Hurston guy. Like I hope they add more quest givers like this, physical ones. Because it's quite cold. The experience of like opening your mobiGlas and just accepting a contract. Yes, it does the job, but in World of Warcraft, you have to go to a place, to a location, like talk to a person, and accept a contract from them, and then go to another place, do that contract, and then come back to them for your reward. Like there was something about that was cool because it felt immersive. It felt real. It wasn't just, oh, I got the mobiGlas, I completed it, and it automatically just transferred me money out of thin air. Like it's kind of cold.
That's something they did talk about a little bit before you had joined. They were adding mission givers pretty regularly, and you could tell that was a big focus for them. They actually had like 3 more planned before probably 2019 or 2020. They just they stopped, and I think mainly that's because of server performance. They don't have the narrative team was probably pretty busy with squadrons, so they didn't have like the ability to make mission change and stuff. And I think that is definitely coming back. They've talked about it a little bit in monthly reports, but the idea of individuals in the game is really interesting, because if you go into their backstories, you'll learn that Tisha Pacheco is, or Twitch on ArcCorp, she's in the position that she's in because she ended up in a conflict versus Ninetales and lost her job at this other security company and now runs her own, or is part of another syndicate. So you're like, okay, does that mean that if I'm trying to do a criminal mission for Twitch and I've got reputation with her, but if I spend 2 months off doing some stuff with Ninetales and I come back to her, is she not going to give me a mission, even though we have good reputation because I've made other friendships? And that's like side progression kind of stuff, right? You're gatekeeping yourself from the choices you make. And
that'd be really cool.
There's like a Tavarin in the UEE Senate, and maybe at some point when they bring the Terra star system into the game, you go to this person to try and run a mission because your friends are in Terra, and they look at you and they're like, I see you've been you've been running with Xenothreat and Stanton. Why would I give you a mission? They don't like aliens. And like those kinds of things, I feel like make your choices make a lot bigger difference in this game. That's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, the game has to give you a way to redeem yourself, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Go blow up the Xenothreat home base. Then I'll work with you.
Yes, something like that. It would be cool if maybe they gave you, if they're upset with you, that if they gave you like a redemption contract that's not paid. It's like, prove to me that you know, first prove your like loyalty, and then I'll consider talking to you about other stuff.
Yeah,
They could do something like that, which that'd be cool.
I also wonder how much novelty will be built into this thing. Kind of like we were talking earlier, things outside of missions. Like if you're not running missions directly for the company, but you're running missions in their jurisdiction, could they make it so that kind of has some kind of an add-on effect? Like if you're always running mining missions around Hurston, is it possible that then the Hurston branches, whatever, whether it's for trade or security, they know that your name is a local name, and that gives you a little more reputation there. I don't know, it's heavy on the theory crafting, but it feels like there's a lot that they could play around with to help you have more of a branching narrative to your story than just, oh, I'm running missions and I'm working up the ranks of this company, and then it's done like that.
Yeah, I really hope they dig deeper. And I mean, you've mentioned so many cool ideas. And I also think they're not short on ideas themselves.
Yeah, they're just short on man hours.
Short on man hours, probably. Yeah. But I also don't want everything I do to affect my reputation. Like, I think there should be some secrecy as well, right? Like, if I go down to a moon and I talk to some stranger and I do a mission for him, who's gonna know? Like, no one should know about that, right? So I also think it shouldn't be everything, because I don't like this magical. For example, I don't even like the fact that a place knows that cargo is stolen. In my opinion, how does a place know that the cargo I have on my ship that's stolen? It's an SU box of iron. What the hell?
Well, I mean, every box of cargo should be tracked, right? Like, should have some kind of a tracking number or something to tell people this is where this is supposed to be.
All right.
I agree with you, though. I agree with you in the sense that, like, if you killed somebody down on the moon's surface, why would anybody know? Why would that get reported? Like, you killed them. It's not like they could. But like,
we could be friends. I could give it to my friend, put it in my friend's ship, and he can sell it, right? How does the game know that?
I agree. I don't think that should be stolen. Like, you should have to mark it as stolen if somebody takes it from you.
Oh, that would also be an interesting system. Like when you block your credit card after it's been stolen.
Yeah.
You like lock it.
I mean, because like you want to be able to get cargo and then give that cargo to somebody else to finish the run, right? Or you, like, if you're a miner with a prospector and your friend comes by and takes the prospector bag off to go and ship it to the refinery, you don't want them to get in trouble for that.
Yeah. I think they don't as of right now, right? When you're in the party and you give someone your cargo?
Yeah. So it's like linked to the party system, but that's not quite not a foolproof kind of thing, I think, because we don't want to party up with everybody.
You could make a trade with a stranger, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And they just started talking about that with this most recent Star Citizen Live with, player created contracts and all this stuff. But those are all like the crazy details that I don't envy anybody having to try and design into this game while people are playing it. Because that's the reputation system itself seems like it's going to be a pain to put together. We're in one star system with like, I don't know, a dozen factions or 24 factions. Like, what happens when that starts expanding out to 5-star systems? And I know, let the jokes roll in on the comments. 5-star systems, 20, 40. But what happens when we start getting more star systems and you've got like 20 different factions and they all have interweaving feelings about each other? And you could do any number of things to ruin those reputations.
I think they have to find a balance somewhere. Like not everything can affect everything else.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Especially lore-wise, from what I understand, information doesn't travel easily between systems, right? Like there has to be someone that runs the data, or like is that what data running is
Yeah.
going to be eventually? Like I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. Is like these star systems are so far apart that if we didn't have jump points, we wouldn't be able to go to them. And the only reason we can communicate between them is because people go between them and bring the data to us.
Especially even places like Pyro, which is obviously supposed to be very scuffed and broken and derelict, and I feel like there wouldn't be much surveillance there, like of maybe no surveillance at all. So if I murder someone in Pyro, how, like, I don't think that would be recorded in any way, right? Or and affect my reputation with a lawful organization, because I'm in the middle of nowhere,
See,
billion kilometers away.
That really brings up the whole how do people find out kind of thing. Are they going to have it be sort of line of sight? If you kill someone and somebody else sees, then it gets reported? Or because that's kind of how it works in things like I mean, almost any RPG that you'd play these days, right? Assassin's Creed, Grand Theft Auto, all these games where you can kill someone in secret. You only really get in trouble for that if somebody else sees you.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. And I mean, you could still have the player report it, because in terms of lore, we also all have a contact lens, right? With a heads up display. Could that contact lens maybe even record stuff? I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's...
So if you murder me, I have evidence of the fact that you murdered me when I wake up in a hospital. I'm just talking about it from a lore perspective.
Yeah. But it's just, there's so many implications to the idea of how things get reported and how it affects reputation. Pyro is I think one of the reasons that they've started to talk more about reputation is partially because they have enough employees to work on it again. But Pyro is super dependent on it. A lot of people think that Pyro is going to be just like a wasteland of no man's land. Like literally every time I bring up Pyro in a video or something, people are stuck on the idea that it's lawless, that nothing you do there matters. And like people saw the preview channel and the tests from late last year. Oh, yeah. But people see this preview channel last year where all of these systems aren't in place. They aren't in place in Stanton either. And they think that was the reality of it, that you go to Pyro and you can do anything and nothing will ever happen. When in reality, there are factions there and they do track your reputation. It's just a matter of like, how will they? Because we have a comm system in Stanton where things can get reported that's held up to standard. It's got maintenance on it. But like you said, in Pyro, if you can just go off to some random moon, there's not really any official system to make sure people get in trouble for stuff. They have to gamify it, of course, and do something themselves, but you're going to have citizens for Pyro, you have the Fire Rats, you have Xenothreat, probably some splinters of Ninetales. There's a couple other factions in there that all could say, hey, this is our space. If we let people just start ruthlessly killing folks, that ruins our space. You're not allowed to do that, and they'll track you down and kill you. That's essentially a police force, right?
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of that. I really, really hope, or I believe that is what's supposed to happen. I hope that you will be denied access to entire locations and services if a gang doesn't like you. I think that is really cool. Or even vice versa, there could be some gangs that don't like you by default, and you really have to grind to unlock that location to get access to a specific base or a specific space station. That I think would be really, really cool.
Yeah. And that's like, you could go and buy the biggest spaceship you want to get into this game, right? You spend real money, just like we were talking about in the beginning. Somebody could spend all that money to catch up to you where you were in the game. But when push comes to shove and they need to go somewhere for a specific mission or a specific entryway, maybe even a star system, right? Maybe even a jump gate might not let you progress because you haven't built up the reputation with that faction, whether it's like the UEE or somebody else, to be able to do that. It doesn't matter how big and powerful your spaceship is.
That'd be so, and in that case, I don't mind people, kind of buying some progress, I'd say. Because there will be things that you can't buy, like reputation, for example.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most important part of reputation, is like it separates progression in the gameplay from progression in what we see as traditionally right now, spaceships and stuff. And I'm sure there are going to be holes there, but it does feel like a really important part of gating content, gating items, armors, ships. Like, they've even kind of hinted at the fact that the Hornet that was retired, the Mark I Hornet, is something you can get in game. And I'm sure that's going to depend on reputation.
Yep. No, absolutely. I hope so.
So we've been talking about reputation in terms of the progression a lot. But there is also reputation in terms of kind of just, well, I guess that's still being able to do stuff is progression, like going to a certain space station or something. But reputation itself can also define like how the game plays for you. If you have a bad reputation with the UEE and Stanton, you're not really gonna be doing any of the same stuff as other people, right? You can't go to cities or space stations and stuff like that. Do you think that this system is going to be adequate in keeping bad actors and the more kind of peaceful players separate? Do you think that it will do a good job of, I hate to use the G word, a lot of people think, griefing is just shooting, attacking, killing, whatever. Do you think it will keep people more safe in areas where they're meant to be safe?
More safe? Yes. 100% safe? You should never be 100% safe in Star Citizen.
You don't think there should be anywhere in the whole game where you're 100% safe?
No. I think there should be places where you're very, 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 very safe. But nothing should be impossible. So if I show up at a space station and there's 5 Idrises waiting for me trying to kill me, it's very, very hard for me to get in that space station, right? Some would say impossible. But theoretically, I could kill 5 Idrises and just go in.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, like, if you go to a city, the security guards in that city should be so numerous and so powerful that they can just basically one-shot you if they see you. But
yes.
There's still some way that you might be able to sneak in and get around them.
Yes, exactly. So I don't like the idea of invisible walls. I think I should be able to pull out my gun in a city and shoot a random person in the head. But if I choose to do something like that, there should be 100 heavily armored military personnel shooting me back within seconds. So I'm not a fan of physical, like invisible walls.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much bigger fan of consequences.
I think this is something that scares a lot of people about the game when they see how, and this is partially CIG's fault, they focus a lot on combat, a lot on everything shooting weapons all the time. Like, look at the Blockade Runner event is coming in, and while they do say it has some combat focus, they kind of like are trying to push the fact that it's a cargo focused event, and people are like, well, it's a cargo focused event, but you're still pushing us to shoot and get in combat. And I think everything that comes into this game, whether it be the mining or the salvaging or looting or whatever, people are like, I don't want to spend 40 minutes doing this and then I just get blown up by somebody and nothing happens to them and I have to respawn and do all this stuff. It's a worry to people that they feel like they'll always live in this game where you can just kind of get blown up and nothing happens to the person. But you think that like at some point Stanton or wherever will be able to just spawn in security fast enough and good enough that people don't really want to do that stuff anymore?
Yes, I hope so. The problem is right now the game sucks at consequences.
It does.
Like,
yes.
The worst thing that can happen to you is you go to Klesher, right? But the things sending you to Klesher, why do cities not have anti-air defenses, for example?
Yeah.
Why? Obviously, I know why the NPCs are terrible. That's just simply we need to wait for better performance. But the game sucks at consequences right now, and I think once we get the performance where it needs to be, then I wouldn't be afraid. Armistice zones right now are absolutely necessary. I'm not saying remove all armistice zones right now before people start crying. That's not what I want right now for the game. The game's nowhere near ready for that.
Yeah.
But I hope that eventually when all the AIs work properly, all the NPCs work properly, not with a 15-second delay so I can run around naked in circles around them, that we could solve this naturally. Let's call it that.
Basically, have your invisible walls, but those need to be enforced by real guns.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope that like when you get to a spaceport, you can see there are like FPS turrets here and there or just not FPS turrets, but like automated turrets that if you had a bad, and this is where the crime stat comes in, I guess, because you could have a bad reputation, but not an active crime stat. Right, you could be known as a bad person, but not necessarily get shot on sight.
Also, this is not really. I'm sorry. This might not be reputation related, but the whole arresting mechanic, we don't have one. Right. Right now, you shoot someone that has a crime stat, they go to prison. But eventually, I thought there should be a non-lethal way of arresting people.
Yeah.
And I think that would also change a lot of things. If you were in a space station with a crime stat, you just have 10 guards come up to you, aim their guns at you, and be like, hey, surrender right now, or we kill you.
A lot of players want to do that too. A lot of people think the players that want combat are all piracy focused, but a lot of people want to kill pirates or arrest pirates. Like many people want to be on the lawful side, but still be doing all of that combat stuff. And you could just be getting followed into these cities nonstop if people get your name. In fact, one of the coolest ideas I think that they've ever presented when it comes to reputation, this was such a long time ago. I do hope that they do this. It was the idea that a bounty hunter, and maybe you have to have high rep with the bounty guild and with the city you're in, but like a bounty hunter could enter a city with their weapons because of the reputation, whereas everybody else was limited and they couldn't. Like maybe you could smuggle in your weapons, but unless you were trusted by the company, you couldn't bring your weapons in. And that gives somebody,
That's
like
cool.
You're saying, sets you apart. It makes you feel like you've accomplished something because you get something in the game that changes your gameplay. And it also lets you hunt down criminals and do your job, because the company themselves know that you're not going to lose it and freak out and shoot some random person.
And finally, bounties wouldn't be able to hide in armistice zones
Yeah.
as well. And that's the kind of privilege that I mentioned at the beginning. That I want to have different privileges or more privileges than players that have just started playing the game.
Yep. And that
Having your gun in a city is a massive privilege.
Yeah. Or
That
being
should
able
be
to
like given to a very select amount people.
Yeah. And we kind of see them talking about that with Pyro when they're like, yeah, you can, if you're good with rough and ready, they'll let you land at their station and use fuel. And even in this last ISC where they're talking about jump points and you might want to stock back up before you go into Pyro because there won't be much refueling services there and all that stuff. Somebody who has a good reputation with those gangs, they don't have to stop at that station because they know that they've got safe havens in Pyro where they can go to because they've negotiated with the local gangs to get services. And like seeing how many different things in the game they could gate kind of like that, it makes Star Citizen sound way more interesting in terms of progression than just buying ships.
Yep. And I think that you can do a lot of interesting things even for cargo haulers. Commodities and fuel and things like that should be scarce. Even food should be scarce in Pyro. So you could have contracts from, let's say, Rough and Ready and their space station for cargo haulers like, hey, supply us with Quantanium and your reputation will increase. We'll like you if you supply us with stuff. So there's so many different ways that you can make it interesting for the variety of players that we have. Some people only like doing cargo. Some people only like doing bounties. Some people only like doing FPS stuff. So yeah, I think you can make it interesting for everyone.
I like that because then you can start to look at that reputation as another form of currency. You could have a trade lane that people take advantage of entirely because they're just getting more in with a really important faction than the fact that they're getting paid for those missions. Like we keep looking at what did they call it? EVR, the effort versus reward. And like right now, that's all based on currency. But what happens in the future when they can start to balance in the reputation benefit that you're getting from that too? Maybe you do want to do a crazy mission into Pyro because you'll get rep, or maybe you get yourself arrested and sent to prison, not because you're going to get paid for something in there, but because there's a certain faction that's in there that you have to get a reputation with in order to do something outside of prison. Like there's a lot of possibilities there, which I guess is kind of the name of the game with Star Citizen. You just look at everything and say, yeah, so much potential.
Like I said, I don't think they're short on ideas.
Yeah.
Something I also don't like, this is again going back to the arresting and bounty hunting thing. I don't like it when they show us things and then we never hear about that thing ever again for months. And bounty hunting is one of those things. I don't know if you remember, they showed us the whole bounty hunting V2 thing coming soon, the little facility in Lorville or wherever it was with the boxes like the Mandalorian that you could, kind of put people in.
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is that?
Actually, I just made a video about this for supporters because this is such a common thing with this game, and I'm guessing it's common with most games, but with most games you don't have to care until they actually got it locked in. I think it's just priorities, though. I think a lot of times they start something or they're working on something, and either a prerequisite makes itself way more apparent. Like I do think that the bounty hunting system wouldn't work without their Star Sim, and for whatever reason that didn't happen as quickly as they wanted. I'm guessing because server meshing didn't allow them to scale up as much to get enough traffic and data and AI actually functioning in the game. So you just get like this knock-on effect of like, well, server meshing got delayed, so Star Sim is kind of delayed, which means virtual AI is kind of delayed, and therefore bounty hunting, there's no point in doing it now. And it happens with so many things, man. Fueling. I don't know what the heck's going on with refueling. They introduced it. It works barely. And we know we need it for pyro. But for whatever reason, the people who are working on it don't have the time to work on it. And I think more often than not, that reason's Squadron 42. And like the fact that they're basically just trying to get everything ready that needs to have Squadron 42 function. And then they'll start working on the extra stuff. Because like if you look at the FPS team, I talked to one of them about this a little bit. They were putting out stuff regularly for the PU from 2018 to 2020, I believe, to 3.12. You can go back in the roadmap and check this out. Anybody who's watching this, open the roadmap and look. Every single patch, except for I think 3.7, we got a new FPS weapon or a new ship weapon. And then 3.12 comes by, nothing at all. Because they all just got moved to Squadron 42 and they were doing stuff there.
But at the same time, there has been an emphasis on features that are relevant to Squadron, right? Like recently, Dynamic Crosshair, EVA, all of that stuff is stuff that is in Squadron anyway.
Yeah, that's the stuff that they finally got done.
And maybe bounty hunting is not something that's in Squadron.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out examples. So that's why we've been getting a lot of other things that are relevant to Squadron. And
yeah. And that's why we're now about to see FPS weapons in the game again, because those people have been let off the leash of Squadron, at least temporarily, and they can now start adding stuff in for us. And the hope is that speeds up. But yeah, there's a lot of things that just kind of like you see them, they work on them a little bit. And then, whether it's because CIG just should not have opened their mouths about it or because something big happened, like a developer got poached by another company or something, they kind of got to either start over or slow down on whatever it is they're making. Do you know about the Air and Halo Belt gates?
Sorry?
The Air and Halo Belt gates, the asteroid belt that goes all the way around Stanton that people go and mine in. They're supposed to be gates that allow access into there.
I thought CIG changed their mind and they were like, "Oh, we're not doing it anymore."
See, you would think, who knows? They've shown us the gates in development and then just silence. And again, you can either assume it's because they changed their mind, which they never explicitly said, or they just had to put them away because they don't have the manpower for it. But there's a lot of stuff like that. A lot.
Shame.
That's like one of the big frustrations. Actually, another topic like that, which I think fits really well into this talk of progression, is the player skill system. Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
There is that. And that I see somebody in the supporters chat here did ask about that earlier. Star Citizen was always kind of like, okay, you work on your player skill, you do your stuff, and the gameplay naturally gets easier for you, and you unlock reputation that naturally lets you do more things that isn't arbitrary. It's controlled by your efforts, which I guess you can kind of say about player skill systems. But now they're starting to talk about a character skill system of sorts. And that walks on what a lot of people thought was the overall goal of this game. But how do you feel about that as another form of progression in the game?
I think it'd be fantastic if we had something like that. If again, my character shouldn't be the same as after 1,000 hours as somebody who's just started, right? My character should be stronger, faster, not by a lot. It should be minor. Like we don't want people with 1,000 hours to just be completely annihilating newbies. But they've mentioned strength. They've mentioned stamina. I think they've mentioned you could literally do something like GTA has, where you have like holding your breath underwater for longer if you've done that a lot. Like just general things like that. And they showed us gyms and they said we could work out. Again, that's something they showed us like a year ago. Never heard of it again.
Did they?
Yeah. They showed us gyms and said that we could work out and improve our character's stats.
I know that they've talked about assassinations, and like you can be
Stealth.
faster at assassinating a character and stuff like that. But how do you feel about this take? So let's say that you have the game and it is built on a platform of player skill, in the sense that if you give two players a gun, and both those players go out to the shooting range, they both have the same chance of hitting the same targets. But because one player has put more time into practicing with that gun, they're obviously better at it. Now, if you had the character skill system in there, and this is not to say this is how they plan to do it, we still don't have a lot of information on it, but let's say you had the player skill system in there, the player who has spent more time in the game maybe hasn't spent more time with that gun, but they have spent more time with firearms. So the game says, okay, you have better aim down sight speed on firearms. It pulls some of that influence away from the fact that the player is good with the gun, and more just the fact that they've put time into that. Some players, might log into the game, jump up and down 50 times, get an extra skill point, and then log off. But that could dictate that they're better at platforming than their friend who just got into the game and actually is a better platformer. Does that have any effect on your opinion?
It's hard to say. Like, obviously, it has to be balanced. The perks that you get, the benefits you get with the stats, will have to be minor passive gains. Maybe aim down sight speed, I say, is fine, but like it shouldn't be where I have a significant advantage over you. I wouldn't mind if it made some things easier. If you do something a lot more, it'll be easier for you to do it more. So if you run a lot, like, it'll be easier for you to run longer because you have more stamina. But maybe if it's something player versus player, where it's something like aim down sight speed, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Maybe they could add something, but it would have to be minor, very passive. Maybe you can reload your gun faster. I know that some people argue that that is also an advantage, but it's not like a direct, who gets killed first advantage.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope. And of most of the conversation I've seen surrounding this, there's obviously camps of people who say, do not do this at all. There's people who say they love it. But a lot of the conversation is around, like, how much are you going to apply this to? Like, does this start to get into the space of ship weapons and fighting? Like, is this going to affect the way I control a turret on a ship? Because the more...
I don't... Yeah, I think it should only affect FPS stuff.
We'll have to see where they go with that.
I don't think if you're stronger, you can move a joystick in a ship faster or something like that. That'd be...
They're very quiet about this. And I'm not sure if it's because they've put it away until Squadron is done, or if it's because they don't want to cause a lot of conversation around it until they've got it in a good place. Definitely.
Yeah, that's also... I just saw a comment about charisma. They could do something like... But then again, we don't have physical vendors, so that's weird. That doesn't really work. I was going to say, you get better prices if you have higher charisma, for example. But maybe that's a little too arcadey for some people.
Yeah. I mean, I like that they're attaching vendor prices to reputation. But yeah,
yes.
One of the other things is, like, they've always focused on the idea that the items are what brings you that difference. So, like, if you're the type of person who goes out and explores some derelict space station, you might find a weapon scope, or you might find, we don't know how much weapon customization will be in the game. I don't think it's too much, but, like, you might find heavy armor that has some interesting technology in it that allows you to sprint longer because you found that armor. But then they'd have to kind of balance not just the fact that there are armors out there that might do that, And before we go any further, I want to make sure I'm not trying to say like you're going to find an armor and it says 20 plus 20 sprint speed or something like that. Specifically, I mean like armors that have something about them that makes them better. Like it's a light armor, but it has more protection. I don't know. I guess that's kind of the same thing. But just the idea that like you get that boost through the item, there's also a chance of getting that boost through a player skill. It starts to add a lot of complication to a system that already feels pretty complicated.
I don't see a reason why we can't have both.
Give it
You know?
all of it.
Yeah, like, why not? But again, I want to clarify it again. Like I don't think I think it has to be balanced. It has to really like it has to be minor passive perks.
It's got to be trade-offs, consequences. Like
Yes.
the game's all about making you choose a specific ship for a specific thing. You know, if I want to land and offload packages quickly on planet, I'm not going to go with a hull C or let's say I'm not going to go with a hull B maybe because that thing might not be able to fly as well as say a raft, which has VTOL thrusters and exterior unloading of packages. And I've always enjoyed that idea that you might have to pick something for your case and somebody else wouldn't want to pick that same thing. It's like what you said. You want to diversify and specialize what you're doing. And there's got to be something with that when it comes to player skills too.
I also think that no matter what profession you choose or like, whether it is medical, mining, salvage, bounty hunting, if you are good at that profession, you should be able to make a lot of money with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's the case right now. There's no progression right now with a lot of the professions. So I simply don't enjoy mining because I don't think the effort and time is worth the reward.
Mm-hmm.
The reward is worth the time and effort. Because there's no, I don't know how you would progress with things like mining. Maybe get, I don't know. Maybe
At some
unlock better
point-
gadgets to mine rocks faster. I don't know.
At some point, it should come down to your knowledge of the game too. Like you just know where to find good minerals.
Yeah. Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, yes. But I feel like there should also be some kind of reward if you've been doing this for a while. Right? Like if you've been mining a lot of stuff for a long time. I don't know how you would justify that.
Because
Sorry?
like a combination of things. If you've got hundreds of hours mining, you've had time to try out all the subcomponents, the different combinations of lasers, the different locales, maybe even like a good spot that has a particularly closer route to a refinery. Or better yet, maybe because you spent so much time doing this, you know a couple refiners who can come out on the job and help you get those minerals refined faster. Like, I think that the gameplay, the game loops that they have need to be able to collaborate to give you more reward for knowing that you can collaborate, you know? And some people don't want to do the whole multiplayer stuff. Allow us to have NPCs do that or AI that can fly out and take care of refining jobs or mining jobs or cargo hauling jobs. But a lot of it, in my opinion, should come down to that game knowledge too, of knowing what your options are and being able to make the best use of those options that somebody who's new to the game just would have no idea about.
But at the same time, I think some things should be locked behind multiplayer.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yes.
like some things you should need other players to help you with.
Absolutely.
You know, so whether it's taking over a distribution center or I don't know, stealing an Idris. I don't know. Like some things should be locked behind multiplayer.
I agree with you there. I mean,
And the game should reward you. The game should reward you if you're playing with a group of people.
Yeah. I saw somebody comment on a video, YouTube video, and they said, "Come on, CIG, don't make solo players second class experience." And I think they've got kind of the wrong idea there. I do think that as a solo player, you're just naturally gonna not have access to as much gameplay or different types of gameplay. I think as a solo player, you should be able to figure out ways to get that stuff done. But like the idea that you should be able to do everything that a group of 10 people should be able to do is a little
That's
wild.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's not. No MMO in the history of MMOs works that way. Like, even if I go back to World of Warcraft, if you don't have a group of 10 people, you're not gonna do the raid, the high level raid that unlocks the best gear in the game for you. Sucks. Tough luck. If you can't find a group of 10 people, it is what it is. And yes, it's hard, and the game should be hard. The end game should be hard. Not everyone should have the best stuff in the game, right? Because then it's not the best stuff. If everyone has it.
If everyone's super, nobody's super.
Exactly.
Great man once said.
And that's also why I don't mind the reputation grind. If everyone has high rep with every faction, why even have rep?
Yeah.
What's the point? Right? If everyone has every ship in the game, what's the point? Why? Like, that's why I think like ships should be really, really expensive, hard to obtain. Reps should be hard to, not boring, but grindy and hard to obtain. Not repetitive and boring, but still hard and time consuming to get. And things should be locked behind multiplayer because that also makes it harder for people.
And that's the challenge for CIG because they both need to communicate that in a reasonable way. They need to make sure that the players who don't have a lot of time to buy those ships or work to buy those ships or don't have a lot of friends or people that they know, all of those things still need to be obtainable in other ways, right? You should have plenty of very engaging gameplay as a solo player. You should have an easy ability to find and group up with other players in the game when you want to do multiplayer stuff. And you should have a good explanation of why the game offers certain things at certain levels. If they're missing any of those things, the game starts to fall apart because the players simply don't know what's going on. And I think when it comes to these kinds of progression that are a little bit less tangible, that's not just money or buying a new ship, that sort of communication and supporting tools are super important.
Yeah. And I don't think that the multiplayer experience jeopardizes anybody's single player experience. I know like people that want to man their Idris's solo, they get really upset about when you mention multiplayer stuff and needing multiple players to do certain things. But you'll always be able to play Star Citizen by yourself. It's just you shouldn't be able to make the same amount of money by yourself as a group of 10 people.
Yeah.
Right? You shouldn't be able to be as efficient and have access to the biggest ships if you're by yourself. I mean, you will have access to them if you own them, right? But
might want to find some friends.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it always goes back to AI blades and NPC crew and all that stuff. And like, I do think that stuff needs to be existent in this game, but let's be honest, right? We've all played your squad-based shooter where your teammates are NPCs. It's not going to be the same experience, and it likely shouldn't be.
No, I don't mind NPC crews and blades and things like that. I think that's a great thing because my friends might not always have time to play with me, but that doesn't mean I want an empty ship, right? I still might want to have people helping me out on the ship and maybe somebody to man my turret. I don't mind that at all, but it'll never be as good as real players, right? Right? It shouldn't be, at least. And I know that they can make AI that will kick your ass.
Oh yeah.
In every scenario, whether it's ship to ship or FPS, like they can do that. But it shouldn't be that way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of different opinions on that in the comments. Would love to hear what people think on this topic, because I think this is one of the bigger topics. Kind of a sleeper, because there's so much focus on like, we can't do anything in the game right now, which is true. The game is glitchy. There's not a lot of gameplay. There's not a lot of missions. There's stuff is missing. But when it comes down to it, reputation and player progression are like probably two of the biggest topics that we're going to have in the community. So thank you so much for joining me for talking about this.